This is Green Hall here at the College of New Jersey in Ewing, constructed in 1931 when the college moved from Clinton Avenue, where it was originally founded in 1855. Taking a look from the outside, and especially going on the inside, you can tell that it's remained relatively unrestored since it was built in 1931. Upon entering, you are greeted with a beautiful old chandelier presenting itself in the foyer, and while walking through the halls, there's no doubt this place is old. From the historic architecture to the archaic lockers, this building is quite a sight to behold, and something to be appreciated for its originality for all these years. Other original parts of the college still remain. Here behind me is Kendall Hall, which was constructed just a year later than Green Hall in 1932. Also constructed in 1932 is the original gym to the Hillwood Lakes campus, Packer Hall, although it has received multiple major additions, once in 1961 and again in 1984, making it look very little like it would have 92 years ago. Roscoe West Library is also the original library to the campus. Having completed construction in 1931, it is currently closed for renovations, although still continues to show its age beautifully. Allan, Brewster, and Eli Halls are also the original dorm buildings on campus, having opened their doors in 1931. However, people at the time continued to dorm at the decaying North Clinton Avenue campus and would bus here for classes. The buildings still remain in use to this day, all showing their age beautifully throughout. One of the final two buildings constructed on the original Hillwood Lakes campus is Norsworthy Hall. Having been constructed in 1935 and opening its doors in 1936, this building demonstrates beautiful dated architecture on the outside, although renovations and facelifts on the inside make it hard to tell its age. Here behind me is the original portion of Bliss Hall, also having been constructed in 1935. For the first 25 years of the building's life, it served as housing for the campus in an effort to remove the last remaining students out of the decaying North Clinton Avenue campus in Trenton. Today, the building has been added onto and repurposed, the original portion serving mainly as office spaces, although it does contain a few classrooms. Besides these few buildings, the college looks rather unrecognizable from how it looked 93 years ago when we first moved here. But besides all these new buildings that have since been put up since 1931, one building remains that not just predates the college that surrounds it, but predates the country that it's in. That would be this building behind me, the William Greenhouse, which has fallen into disrepair since its abandonment in the late 1960s. The building was originally home of the Green family, having started out as a small log cabin housing William Green I, who immigrated to what is now the U.S. from England sometime in the late 1600s or early 1700s. The land was sold to William Green I in 1712. The building went through many changes over the years, having been added onto 3 separate times. This here is where the original 1.5-story log cabin may have been, which can only be remembered through its roofline, visible only on the inside. This is the oldest brick section of the house, dating back to 1722, which still remains and can be distinctly recognized through its beautiful Flemish bond brickwork, which represented opulence at the time. This original 1722 part of the house was started by William Green I, although he died before completion, with William Green II taking over construction. The building was later extended in brick in the 1780s to where the original log cabin allegedly used to be, as well as later on in the 1830s, bringing this half of the house as well as the second floor. Other things that once stood here which are now gone are a smokehouse, water spring, porch, and summer kitchen. One artifact that still remains is this water source in what is now a bamboo forest beside the home. The Green family has a rich history, with William Green III and William Green Jr. having been scouts for George Washington's army. Not just that, but it's said that both American and British soldiers billeted here in the home during the Revolutionary War. The house belonged to the Green family up until 1879, having remained a plantation home for the family up until then, notably having housed a few slaves. The building remained in use for some time, housing a couple families early on, including the Blackwell family, and later becoming a duplex, housing a professor and his family on one side and a college football coach on the other side. Anthropology professor George Leer recalls speaking to a woman who lived in the house in the mid-1900s.
And I actually met a woman who was at the time in her 90s and has since passed away about 8-9 years ago. And she told me that as a little girl, she was listening listening to the radio on the back porch when she heard, was it that Roosevelt had died? I think it was that when Roosevelt died, and she lived there.
Despite efforts to keep the home in use, the building was ultimately left abandoned by the late 1960s. The Green family farm home isn't the only historic building on campus, however, rather the only one that still remains. Other notable buildings include the Wenzel House, a poorly documented house that belonged to an African-American family, as well as the home belonging to Susan Titus, the last remaining descendant of the Furmans. In an interview with elderly Susan Titus for a 1934 Signal article, she goes on to tell about the history of the campus to her knowledge, going through a long history of the campus in her lifetime as well as past relatives. Most notably, Susan Titus mentions burial grounds on the campus, one belonging to a troubled African-American family of chicken thieves that lived in a house roughly where Packer Hall would be now. Titus states that the family buried deceased members of their family in the backyard, likely around where the football field is now. Another burial ground is located on campus as well, where 2 or 3 Native Americans were buried beside a birch tree, as you can see in a map drawn for the interview here, either done by her or by students, as well as another map drawn by a professional surveyor in 1977, which you can clearly see here. These Native American graves are long gone and cannot be detected using underground detection methods. The graves would have been right underneath the study room you can see here, next to an apple tree. The reason the graves are gone is due to the construction of Holman Hall, destruction of Holman Hall, and then construction of the new STEM complex, likely destroying the graves and digging them up forever.
I truly think that the Native American women, whose names were Sally and Hannah, and there's also an instance in one reference where it says there are 3 Native American women, but I truly think they might have been destroyed in the both building of Holman Hall and then the tearing down of Holman Hall and rebuilding of the STEM complex. The best I can get, we used ground penetrating radar and a few other geophysics techniques to try to locate anomalies, and we couldn't find anything.
Another potentially larger site for Indian graves would have been either underneath or beside Kendall Hall, although documentation for this is more scarce and we are not 100% sure where they may be. So what's the point in telling all this? Well, the next time you walk through campus, look around and think of it then more than just a school, but an endless piece of history that you are now a part of. My name is Jake Schwarzman, and I thank you for watching.